We're back. It is day 7 of Cathay week, the week that I never got to finish because the 1.5 FAQ dropped, but we have a new Arcane journal for Cathay. This was leaked yesterday by the Squarebase channel, and now for a word from the sponsor of this video, the owner of Squarebase, or one of the owners, the TSN Arena. This video is brought to you by the TSN Arena, the #1 place to go for Old World and Age of Sigmar tournaments here in Nottingham. Rob runs a wide range of events, from 500-point forays all the way up to 2,600-point mega battles, where single models like dragons have a less pronounced effect on the game and you see bigger bricks of infantry. Of course, there's still the normal 2,000-point battles, but even in there's some room for experimentation, with fan-favourite events like the river battles going incredibly quickly. The TSN Arena is located on the outskirts of Nottingham city centre near the Motorpoint Arena, and it is conveniently located in the middle of plenty of parking spots within walking distance of multiple hotels and 2 great places to go for food, including Snenton Market, which has a wide range of options. So, if you're interested in going to a venue where there's plenty of table space, the comfiest chairs that I've been in at any venue, and free drinks all weekend, go to www.tsnarena.com to buy your tickets today. Link in the description. This Arcane Journal is a little light on rules in comparison to some of the other ones that we've seen, but there are a lot of things that are quite strong in here. However, let's start off by talking about the balloon in the room. Balloons are too good. This is just objectively true. I have played against balloons a lot. I think I've been tabled by balloons around 25 times now. I've played a couple of games as balloons. I've played various versions where you've got, 5 balloons on the table. I've played the WTC restrictions where there's only 2 balloons and there's some, it's a more tuned down list. They are too strong. I'm not talking about this in the context of balloons being the best thing in the game. Why? I don't think that's useful at all. I am working with the assumption, and this is coming from a history of playing Games Workshop games, that they will fix things. Games Workshop does a pretty okay job overall at balancing their game. It's never perfectly balanced. If you want to play a perfectly balanced game, you can play chess. However, if something is really, really good, it normally gets fixed within about 3 months. That feels like a long time, but in the reality of people actually playing games outside of us terminally online people who maybe make this our full-time job, it's not actually that long. So I do have faith that they're going to fix it. If we do start, get to a point where actually they're not going to address it and it becomes a problem, I will change my opinion on that. I will start talking about it in those sorts of terms. But for now, I'm going to assume that something is going to be done about the balloons, and I'm going to take this Arcane Journal at face value, talk about what it has, the fun combos that it has in there as well, because also maybe you're playing Cathay, maybe you're not bothered about writing, the best competitive list. You're going to play with your friends. You're not going to use balloons in terms of, bring 1 balloon, bring 0 balloons, playing at the club, whatever. And I think it's worth talking about the Arcane Journal is, what it can bring outside of the shadow cast by the flotilla of balloons above our heads at all times. So let's start off with the Army of Infamy composition list. And this is almost the same as we have in the main book, but the difference is if your general is a Shigangan Lord or a Shigangan General, you can't take an additional Cathayan Sentinel in special, the way you can in Grand Army. And if you've got a Lord Magistrate as your general, you can't take an extra Sky Lantern in special as well. So basically the same outside of a Cathayan Sentinel spam list where you were taking 3 of them, 2 in rare, 1 in special. I wasn't really seeing anyone using this rule to much effect. Just to go back to balloons being good, people would typically spend their 1,000 points in characters on balloons if they wanted to go down that route. So I don't think this makes any real difference. However, outside of the characters through to rare slot, we do have some differences. And this is one of the first times I've seen mercenaries in a way that I'm actually interested in using them. So, mercenaries. Up to 33% of your army points value may be spent on mercenaries from the Empire of Man army list, which includes 0-1 Captain, Master Mage, Priest of Sigmar, or Priest of Ulrich per 1,000 points. State troops, state missile troops, free company militia, and Empire archers, and then 0-1 unit of Pistoliers or Outriders per 1,000 points. Note, mercenary units within a Jade fleet army are not subject to the misbehaving mercenary rules. So, what does that mean? That means you can take mercenaries and not risk having them just not do anything on the tabletop. I think that mercenaries are, as a whole, held back by their consistency. And I basically never look at them in terms of being willing to put them on the table, because I'm not willing to take the risk that they don't function in the way that they should 1 in 6 games. That means, you know, if you're going to a tournament, on average, roughly once per tournament, one of each unit that is a mercenary isn't going to do what it's told to do. So that is a concern for me. And this means that you can actually take mercenaries in a way that benefits the army. I think it's a good way of integrating them as well. So if you think of them as not mercenaries, but if you think of it as sort of a combined arms army, this still lets you take a restricted amount of models. It does open up more character points, which is something we can talk about. But it allows you to take Empire troops, but those Empire troops aren't core, so they can't score objectives. You can't just take cheaper state troops, for example, put them on the tabletop and say, this is what I'm going to do for scoring. So I think this is actually quite a well-balanced way of doing things, given 1.5. So I don't hate this. I think it's an interesting way to add things in. 2 units of Outriders at 1,000 points, that's a lot of guns that you can add in. And then I think the characters are interesting as well. I'm not super blown away by anything in the middle there. The state troops, state missile troops, and the Free Company militia / archers. I could see you putting them on the tabletop, but I don't necessarily feel like they add much to the army in the way of it's missing something. If they were core, then yes, but they are not. So interesting changes there. Now, as we also go down, you can see the Battle Standard Bearer. You can have a Gatekeeper as your BSB, just standard to the normal Cathay list. And then also, any models that have the option to purchase magic items may purchase common items or Empire of Grand Cathay magic items, which, when I first saw this, I saw a much blurrier quality version of this, and I thought that said Empire or Grand Cathay magic items, so that would have been difficult. It has been FAQ'd and ruled in the base FAQ that mercenaries pull from their own book in terms of magic items. I don't believe this down here supersedes it, because this is just standard wording for how magic items are done. So I believe you have all of your models here in the normal army list can take the common or Empire of Grand Cathay magic items, and then if we're looking at the mercenaries, they can take common or Empire magic items. That's my understanding of it. Please do let me know in the comments if you think that I'm wrong, or if you think there's a different interpretation there, because I think that's one of the things here that is open to some small amount of interpretation. So outside of basically the same muster list, what do we get for taking the Jade Fleet? Well, you get 4 special rules, and these are interesting and flavorful, and I don't think particularly move the needle, other than maybe war balloons, but we can talk about that and go back to, balloons. So we start off with Cathayan Black Powder, which is the first time that any unit in a Jade Fleet army that is armed with a handgun, a pistol, bracer pistol, repeater handgun, or repeater pistol, the range of that weapon is increased by 3 inches. This is interesting. So basically this means you can take black powder weaponry. Black powder weaponry usually caps out at 24 inches in terms of range, but because you've got plus 3 inches the first time you shoot, you can, even if you win the roll-off to go first, you can have a unit of handguns deployed on the line, shoot something that's within 3 inches of the edge of your opponent's deployment. So that's nice. That feels very good. It's a flavorful way of saying, obviously, Cathay is based on, a variety of Eastern themes, and one of the things there, there's mastery of craft. So theoretically, the black powder here is, more time is spent making it. It is more perfected. And I think this is just a nice fluffy way of representing that without being too strong. So I like this rule. I'm mostly looking at it in terms of Outriders. I think Outriders are a very good unit. They get worse if you take them outside of Null. But I think this and... I think this rule is maybe enough to push them into being a consideration for you if you want to bring some black powder with your Cathay. Mercenary handgun drill. Once per game, each unit or detachment of state missile troops in a Jade Army fleet can fire with 1 additional rank. This is fine. I think you could have just given them volley fire as a general rule, and that would have been fine as well. But yeah, this is good. You can, I guess, sit them on a hill and shoot with 3 ranks once per game. I'm not sure that I'd bother doing that. Generally, if I'm thinking about a unit of handgunners or, ranked up missile troops, I don't really want to go too heavy on them. I don't feel like I want to go too big of a unit. They're not core, so they're not going to score anything. I think this is okay. I was probably going to run smaller units or not run units at all, but it's a rule that's there. And again, it's a rule that I think gives you a little bit of a benefit, feels good to use, but doesn't actually really move the needle on whether something is too good or not good enough. Unity and Harmony. Any unit of Jade Warriors or Jade Lancers within 3 inches of a friendly mercenary unit may reroll hit rolls of 1 during the combat phase. Now, this is an interesting rule, because I had to go up and look at how mercenaries work. So, if we just look at this on the face, our base troops, the Warriors and the Jade Lancers, neither of them are particularly great in combat. They are very decidedly fine. They're whatever. So rerolling 1s to hit is okay. It doesn't make a huge difference. And because you've got to be within 3 inches, it's a little harder to pull off. I think the intention of this rule is you've got, a unit of Jade Warriors shoulder to shoulder with a unit of State Missile handgunners, something along those lines. You've got the Black Powder troops, you've got the Cathayan foot troops as well. And that's fine, and that theoretically can work reasonably well. However, where this works, I think, is the best and most fun combo, is if you put a character into the Jade Lancers. So, and again, we're talking about this through the context of we're not worried about the balloon dominance. We're looking at this holistically. We're talking about what might be good for the book, what sort of fun combos can we bring in with this compared to the base rules. You can take a Priest of Ulrich, put them on an Empire Warhorse, or Barded Warhorse, I can't remember the name of it, the one that's 16 points. And that gives you a lot of upgrades when you join them to Jade Lancers. Now, mercenaries can't be joined by non-mercenary characters. So if I had a unit of handgunners, I couldn't put a Cathayan Gatemaster in there. That's not allowed, but it's a one-way rule. So I can take a unit of Jade Lancers and I can put mercenary characters in there. And previously there weren't very many mercenary characters, if any. I'd have to go back and double check. But you can take captains, mages, priests, Priests of Ulrich. Both of these, I think, are pretty good in terms of joining a unit. And it adds another... This takes me back to watching, obviously, this is Japan and not the Chinese influence, but I watch Shogun, and you've got the influence of the Christian priests coming to the... coming to those countries. So it's an interesting flavor change, I think, but also what it actually brings rule-wise is you can get a prayer from either Sigmar or Cathay. Sigmar or from Ulrich. Losing my mind here. Depending on which way you want to go. But also, magic resist on the unit. First charge from the Empire Warhorse. That's really strong. Jade Lancers don't have first charge. They rely on putting characters in there. Previously, you were doing it with like a Gatemaster or something like that. But now you can put in, for example, the Priest of Ulrich. I think Ulrich is the one that I like the most because you've got some interesting prayers in there. And they bring reroll 1s to hit because the character is obviously within 3 inches of the unit. It's within the unit. So just to summarize, you're getting reroll 1s to hit. You're getting a prayer, which might be increasing your charge range. There's a prayer to give you plus T3 inches on the charge range. Or maybe you're getting damage 2 on those lancers, depending on what you're going into. If you're fighting multi-wound troops, you've got magic resist 1, and you've got first charge in there as well. So it's a really, it's a lot of buffs, and that comes in at 76 points if you don't put any upgrades on the Priest of Ulrich to start off with, other than a horse. So I think this is a really fun rule to play around with, and you can supercharge your troops to actually maybe do something. Obviously, their output is pretty anemic. They're AP1 strength 4, AP1, armor bane 1. They do fight in 2 ranks on the charge, which is okay. But you could theoretically buff them up to damage 2 if you're going into something like ogres or treekin or other monstrous infantry. Or you can just make them more reliable in the charge. So I think this is a fun rule. This one feels like, when I was looking at Cathay initially, I was looking at Total War and how everything worked through that sort of yin and yang system. You get better when you have, different units working together. This feels like it works down that sort of path. And obviously that's the intention that we've got here, even through the name, just unity and harmony. I think it's a fun one to have in there. I do like that as a rule. And hopefully there's some fun combos that we can find in there. I think the Jade Lancer and Priest of Ulrich one is the obvious one. And yeah, maybe there's some other stuff in there that I've missed as well. Then we have got War Balloons. 0 to 1 Sky Lantern per 1,000 points may have the Ambushes special rule for plus 15 points. And once per game, a Sky Lantern that is held in reserve may re-roll the dice when rolling to determine if it arrives this turn as reinforcements or is delayed. This is just a fairly ridiculous level of consistency that you can put onto balloons. It's unnecessary. If you are playing Cathay, let's say that we're in a world where balloons aren't the be-all and end-all. This is just fun. You can start a balloon off the table and then bring it in. Sure. If we just very briefly touch on what this is going to mean if people want to play a competitive list with this, it means that you can keep your drops very low. That's the main thing. So the current build, if you're playing 2 balloons, is 3 cannons, 2 character balloons, 500 points more characters. You know, whether you've got Miao Ying or you fit in a couple of generals, whatever you go for, there's, you know, pluses and minuses to each. And then there's 2 units of ambushing Jade Lancers, 1 unit of regular Jade Warriors. That means that you can keep your drops super low. Your drops are characters, war machines, and then you've got 1 unit of Jade Warriors, and the 2 units of Lancers can ambush. So that means that you can play a 2 balloon list with only 3 drops, which means you're almost guaranteed to get the +1 to go first. This just lets you put more balloons in and keep that bonus. So in that realm, obviously it's very strong, but whatever. If we're talking about it in terms of people playing 0 to 1 lanterns in general, or maybe lanterns go up in points, this is fine. It's just an interesting rule. They're very mobile. You want to keep them on the table to start off with, unless you're playing against some sort of Alpha Strike shooting list where this would give you some protection. Just as a very quick note here, I think it's worth mentioning in terms of the combination, because it's objectively hilarious. So if we go back to here, War Balloons, you can re-roll the dice to determine whether you come in as reinforcements or not. So that's not you re-roll a fail. It gives you the option of, if you were going to come on, you can re-roll if you want to. And then you combine it with Heavenly Beacon, which is a rule that rules as written stacks, which is when it's on the battlefield, you may apply +1 or -1 modifier to the result when determining if friendly units with ambushes come on. So if you combine Heavenly Beacon and War Balloons, let's say you've got 2 character balloons that start on the table and 2 rare balloons that start in reserve, you theoretically can roll, as long as you don't roll a 1 or a 6, you can do whatever you want. If you roll a 2, it's not coming on. Oh, I can put +1 to it twice, so it becomes a 4, and then my reserve comes on. Oh, I roll a 5. Oh, I didn't want it to come on this turn. Let me apply -1 modifier to the result twice, because I've got 2 balloons on the table. Oh, I rolled a 6. Too bad, so sad. Let me re-roll that one, because I didn't want to bring it on. I think this is just, it's just funny. It's hilarious. It's such a level of consistency. It's, you may as well not roll any dice, because you just do whatever you want. But here we are. Moving on to the magic items section of the book. And this is going to be the biggest section of the book, because there's only 1 army of Infamy. It doesn't bring any new units. It only brings a page of rules. This is what we've got. We've got some new magic weapons, and none of these magic weapons are limited to the Jade Fleet. These are all available for all Cathay armies. So we have to look at those in the context of, do you want to use this in the main book? Now, I will say the main book is so close to the Jade Fleet in terms of what it brings outside of the Empire side of things that I don't think it really makes much difference in terms of how we evaluate things. But we have got some weapons. So this is This is a sword that I have seen teased and talked about behind the scenes a little bit, very positively, which I think is funny, because it's 65 points for Strength +2, AP -2, Killing Blow, 2-handed weapon. Okay, sure. That 2 hands, not really a downside in terms of Cathay. They don't use shields on their characters, really. The Shigengan Lords and Generals, they can't use shields, so there's no downside here. The balloons, if you wanted to put it on a balloon character, you shouldn't, but if you wanted to, they don't use shields either. Gate Masters, that's the only character that could theoretically use a shield. I'm not really worried about putting some sort of magical weapon on a Gate Master. So, yeah, this is not a downside. It looks like one on paper, but it's absolutely fine. So it's basically Strength +2, AP -2, Killing Blow, and if you roll a 5 or a 6 to wound, you get a Killing Blow. That's fine. There aren't enough attacks or consistency in my mind, and there is a way of comboing it to make this super exciting. For 65 points, this is what Ogre Blade used to cost. I would just pay the extra 10 points and take Ogre Blade a lot of the time, I think. This feels very one-note. Now, if you're specifically wanting to kill infantry characters, this is not a bad way of doing it. You've got a good way of getting consistency in there. But it doesn't blow me away. I'm not looking for a reason to take this sword. So it's fine. If it had Monster Slayer on there as well, this would be incredible. But because it doesn't, maybe you go into, you know, a unit with a character, declare a challenge, and then they just accept the challenge with a unit champion, and you get to killing blow a unit champion instead of killing blow a character. Or lots of characters that are bringing immunity to killing blow. So I think this is fine, and it's one of the more fun / interesting / usable expensive magic items that we see in terms of if you're looking to bring something as a magic weapon on your characters, because maybe you're not super worried about making the most cutthroat list and you're just like, oh, I want to tool up my character for combat. I think that's fun. This is a good place to start, but I don't think it's mind-blowing. The Brazen Blade for 50 points, so you can put this on lower level characters. Strength +1, AP -1, magical attacks, multiple wounds 2, and then if you roll a 6 to wound, your enemies don't get ward or regen saves. This is interesting. This is, I think, not good enough, especially given the change that we've seen with parry, giving you an additional +1 to your armor save. You can super easily on, battle standard bearers just go heavy armor and a shield or a charmed shield, and suddenly you've got a 3-up armor save. So getting to a 4-up armor save for the AP1, not very good. I feel like this could do with Armor Bane 2 on there as well, and just really double down on the fact that when you roll a 6 to wound, people just don't get to make saves against you. I think that would add some fun flavour to it. Another way that you could make this better is if you had some other way of debuffing armor saves. So maybe if you pair this with Plague of Rust. I think Plague of Rust in 1.5 is very hard to cast. I'm not looking at Plague of Rust as a consistent spell I can bring. It casts on a 9. My opponents are probably going to have magic resist on the units that I want to cast it on, so this is difficult to get off. Again, this is probably not making the cut for me, but also this is good enough that if you wanted to have a fun experience with your melee characters, this feels good enough to put on and you'll have a good time with it. And I think that's obviously we talk about the competitive level of things on this channel a lot, but also that's not the entirety of the experience for people who play this game. So if you just want a fun magic item that is going to lead to funny moments and stories of, when you play games, this probably does pretty well. Oh, I did the last 2 wounds to, the elf on dragon who had an opal amulet with 2-up ward save, but I rolled a 6, so I managed to slay him. That sort of stuff. It's fun. It's unlikely to happen, but you just give yourself the opportunity to make those stories. And on that basis, I think it's a fun magic item. Wrath of Zenyang, 45 points. So we're quite expensive for what we're paying. And this one I don't really have much positive to say. So it's strength +1, AP -1, armor bane 1, flaming attacks, which is usually a downside. Enemy models cannot make regeneration saves against a wound caused by this weapon. So this is just, they've turned flaming attacks into old school flaming where it turns off regen. And that's fine, but I don't think this actually does much. Strength +1, getting you to strength 5 is okay. AP -1 is pretty anemic. Again, just going back to what I was saying about parry saves, we're seeing a lot higher saves in the game than we were previously. If I go into combat, I'm expecting my enemy to have a 4-up or a 5-up. Sorry, a 4-up or a 3-up a lot of the time. Especially things that I want to kill with this character. I don't usually take characters with the intention of massacring rank and file. So, yeah, this is fine. And I guess the units that have regen often don't have good armor saves, but then the units that have regen also quite frequently have high toughness. So being strength 5 going into something like a gigantic spawn of Nurgle, I'm not super impressed by. But yeah, this one feels like a miss to me. The other two I feel like have fun reasons to take them. This one, not so much. Then we have got the 4th and last magic weapon, the Sword of Nangao. 35 points. This is Strength User, AP -3, Hatred Warriors of Chaos, magical attacks. It's fine. AP is good. AP is good. It's the lack of plus strength that really makes me struggle to want to take this aggressively. Just to vaguely talk about, I think, why magic items or magic weapons a lot of the time feel underwhelming. It is that you're paying a lot of points for something that has quite a low number of attacks. So if we just very quickly, let's go in here and have a look at the profile of the actual characters. So if you put this on your Shigangan Lord, weapon skill 6 it's a misnomer. You can very easily get up to weapon skill 7 or better. Your strength 4, so you're only going to get up to, with this sort of weapon, you're only strength 4. You've got 4 attacks, you've got no way of increasing those attacks consistently. So 4 attacks that are going to be hitting on 3s or 4s that are strength 4 AP3. That's not super exciting. There's not enough beef in this character to make me want to take a magic weapon. If I compare it to something like a Bretonnian Duke or a Black Orc with Furious Charge or a warrior, a Lord of Chaos, Warriors of Chaos, though because they've got strength 5 base, they've got the extra attack. When you put those magic items on them, those magic weapons, it feels more impactful and you feel like you're getting more out of it. You are getting more out of it. You're getting 25% more attacks. You're getting, because they're +1 strength. If you're going into, let's say, an Ogre Blade, you're going into a dragon, you're wounding on 3s instead of 4s. Just being strength 4, it feels pretty anemic to buy a magic weapon, especially if it's one that doesn't increase your strength. So coming from playing elves, I find that magic weapons don't typically feel great on these sorts of characters, and I'm not necessarily looking to pay 35 points. I'd like to see these weapons at a much lower point value for what they bring, I think, if we're talking about armies that have worse lords in combat. But yeah, so two weapons that I think are fun and are okay, but maybe not, out of this world, and then 2 that are pretty underwhelming. Sword of Nangao's not bad. As mentioned, people are bringing better armor saves now with parry, so this will help you cut through those. But if you're taking a 35-point magic weapon with the goal of trying to do 2 or 3 wounds to a unit champion in a challenge, I think I would just plan to use my unit differently, especially given that it's going to be on a character that has fly and swift stride and the ability to get around the table. Fear not, it is never the magic items that are exciting. It is usually the armor and everything below it that is quite fun. So, in this one, what have we got? We've got the Jade Armor of Baekchai. 40 points, it is full plate, it gives you a 5-up ward save and magic resist 2. This is a weird item. So, this goes on balloons very well. Balloons, it's the 3rd ward save item that you can pick for a balloon. It gives them magic resist 2, and it doesn't compromise your 4-up armor save. Because if you're wearing armor that gives you a ward save, you have to use that armor save to unlock the ward save. So for 40 points, this is probably going to become the 1st or 2nd item that you put on your character balloons if you want to go down that route. Cool, that's good. But that's probably not what they were writing it for. I would assume. This feels like the intention was not for balloons to run roughshod over the game, because that's just not good for Games Workshop. So I wonder what the purpose of this is. The reason I ask that is if I just go back to the Shigangan Lords, they have the rule down here, Celestial Forge Armor 5-up. So they've got a ward save built in, and they're also capped at a 3-up armor save. So they can go Armored Hide 2 plus Heavy Armor, and that gets them to the maximum 3-up armor save they can get. Now, I will say, and here's a point that I think people are losing their mind a little bit over this Arcane Journal, and one item in particular, and I'll talk about it at the time then, but there is a lot of lead time for print media. My understanding is that there is a 6-month minimum lead time, because the only thing that is not manufactured, or one of the few things that is not manufactured here in Nottingham in the UK, is the print media. They outsource that. They do it outside of Nottingham. So with that in mind, if this was sent to print no later than February or March, that's before the FAQ. So maybe the intention was that you could pay 40 points to get your Shigangan General up to a 2-up armor save. And then the magic resist on there is nice as well. And having the ward save on there just makes it feel good if you want to put it on one of the other characters, such as the Gate Masters here. So maybe that's the intention, and that would make sense in terms of how it's ended up where it is. But it feels like a little bit of a confused item to me. I don't feel like I need a ward save on my armor that feels like it's specifically built for more combat-y characters. But very good on balloons. If you wanted to go for a BSB and make them a little bit tankier, add some magic resist to your units. I think magic resist 2 is very strong. 40 points is not a poor way of doing that. Second up, we've got the Mantle of Heaven for only 20 points here. Infantry or cavalry only, so that's very limited as to who you can put that on. Maybe worn with other armor. Increase their armor save by 2 against non-magical shooting attacks. I don't know what this is for. If I've got an infantry or cavalry model, I will not let you shoot them. I'm just not going to have them out in the open. So that's an odd choice. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this. This is odd. I'm not sure what the use case of it is designed to be. I can't imagine when they were writing this who they wanted to put it on. Because there's no engineers, so there's nothing that needs to stand near cannons and potentially be out in the open. You can't put it on balloons. You can't put it on the Shigengans. So that leaves you with just foot strategists and magistrates and foot or mounted gate masters. I don't know why I'd want that. That feels odd to me. So yeah, bit of a miss for that one. But that's okay, because there's plenty of other fun stuff that is coming up. Talismans, Sigil of Smoke and Powder. This thing is great. Negatives to be shot right now are very strong. Now we might be looking at the reason that negatives to shoot are important, but it's just good to be able to have. You put this on a character and them and their unit get -1 to hit. So if you wanted, you could put this on a balloon. I actually don't know that I care too much about taking ballistic skill shooting. I've got, high toughness and a decent save, layered saves on there. So small arms fire is not what I'm really worried about. Where I really like this is if you wanted to take a unit of Jade Warriors, you put some sort of supportive character in there, give them the Sigil of Smoke and Powder, have them towed into a wood or a little bit behind terrain or something like that. Suddenly you've stacked some modifiers, you're -2 to hit, you're not you're not going to survive shooting entirely, but you're resistant to ballistic skill shooting. And I think these sorts of items are very strong at the moment and worth considering putting into your list. So Sigil of Smoke, very, very good. Next up, we've got the Vermilion Quills. This is 25 points for every time they print this, it gets better, and I'm not sure why. So, 0 to 1 per model, single use. The bearer may reroll failed hit rolls and wound rolls during the combat phase. So, the way that this is worded, or you can activate it for your hit rolls, or you can get through the hit rolls and not need to activate it, and then activate it for the wound rolls as well. These items are odd. They feel weird to me because you don't have to declare them before you roll the dice. There's nothing saying that you have to do that. So you can roll your attacks, realize that you missed with 3 of them and go, oh, now is the time to use it. It's also extremely common, but 0 to 1 per model. So this is power crept from Paymaster's Coin, in that Paymaster's Coin is just reroll hits. This is power crept from Orion's Favor, the Wood Elf version, which is this item specifically, but it doesn't give you, it's not extremely common. It's getting better and better. And I don't know that that's a problem, because this item doesn't feel like it's an issue. In Cathay specifically, there aren't any melee characters that could take this that I go, oh, I really, really want to have rerolls to hit and wound. It'd be nice to have, but I'm only making 4 attacks. The best I can bring is Strength 6, AP 2, Armor Bane 1. Or, some sort of multiple wounds. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. Maybe if you wanted to go for an Illusion Caster. But if you're taking this... Sorry, Illusion Caster for Spectral Doppelganger specifically. If you're taking this, and you're taking a Lore Familiar, and you're taking a Power Scroll, that puts you at, what, 50, 75 points? You're taking a 25-point magic weapon? That's not very exciting. So... yeah, I think this is okay. It's just weird to me that it keeps getting printed better and better. People are going to say, oh, because it's Cathay. But I think it's just that every time they release it, they go, actually, this isn't good enough that people are playing it. Let's try and make it better. So, yeah, it's an interesting item. Just as a disclaimer, or not disclaimer, a digression here, I think this sort of item has the potential to cause balance issues down the game. So, it's the sort of thing that is either kind of unusable in that it doesn't make any sense to take it, or it's too good. Now, we do see characters running Paymaster's Coin. I think Paymaster's Coin is okay. Rerolling hits is a lot less problematic than rerolling wounds. But there's going to be some point in the future where having the ability to reroll all your wound rolls is just too good. Like Bretonians with the Lucky Heirloom, you get to reroll 1 hit, wound, or save roll per battle round. You have to take 3 of those to be able to reroll 3 wounds if you're fishing for 6s with your Killing Blow or your Monster Slayer. And 75 points for that. I pay 75 points for that. This is just once per game I get to do that thing. So I think if the wrong combination of rules is printed, this could be a real problem. It isn't a problem here. This is me just going on a digression. This leaps out at me as being, a potential problem for something that gets printed 3 years down the line. But yeah. Anyway, by the by, this is fine if you want to go for a combat character. Again, it's not the most efficient way to play Cathay, but go off. It's fun. You can reroll all your hits and wounds, and you can take it on multiple characters if that's the way that you want to build. Over to, I think that's the end of them. Yeah, over to the Magic Standards. And Magic Standards are one of my favourite places to look for rules. I think a lot of armies that do well are tied into having good Magic banners. So it's always nice to see more options built. Banner of the Dragon's Wrath, for 45 points, you can have the downside of flaming attacks, and you can have impact hits 1. I think this is very poorly pointed. I don't hate this as an item. I think I'd consider this on Jade Lancers if it was in the realm of 20 to 25 points. Now, impact hits is obviously a very strong rule, but Jade Lancers fight in 2 ranks, so they probably want to be not too wide. They want to be in a couple of ranks to make sure they're getting their attacks. Flaming attacks, theoretically, is good into Troll Horde if you're having issues with those. I am not a fan of tailoring your lists, but if you're playing a campaign, maybe it's the sort of thing where it rationally makes sense, where you go, oh, I'm going to, I've managed to get this banner because you've been stomping me, something along those lines. Impact hits on 4 models at strength 3 is probably not going to move the needle very much. So this needs to be a lot cheaper for me to consider it. But impact hits are fun to roll. So this is one of those where it's not good, but feel free to put it into your list if you're looking for a fun item. And given how strong Cathay are, I think it's not wrong to, when you're playing with friends, consider looking at the things that are less good and maybe more fun. Moving on to the Jade banner for 40 points. Now, this is a banger. We have got a really good banner here. This is War Banner Plus. For 40 points, you get +2 combat res. Great. You can also take a BSB with War Banner. Fantastic. This is just a lot of static combat res. And you can take... obviously, you can make Jade Warriors have very high combat res, or you could make a Battle Standard Bearer high combat res, but the BSB is only on a horse, so that's not super problematic. But what you can do is you can suddenly make Jade Lancers have very good combat res, and I think that's a fun combination to look into. So if you go with a unit of Jade Lancers, of course, Cavalry can only have 1 rank bonus, but Jade Lancers do have Horde, as you can see here. So you get a 2nd rank of rank bonus. So you've got Close Order, 2 ranks with Horde, and then you've got Standard, and on top of that we've got BSB, War Banner, and then Grand Banner of Superiority. So you can get this unit up to combat res, static combat res of 8, which I think is interesting and worth playing around with as a concept. So yeah, just a flat +2 combat res, very, very good. Obviously, Grand Banner of Superiority here, even though they called it the Jade Banner, they literally just copy and pasted this from the Skaven book and then changed it from D3 to +2, I guess. But yeah, bit embarrassing. Still a good banner. Jade banner, very, very good. Next up, we've got the Shroud of Shyama. 25 points. Gains fear. If they have fear already, they gain terror. Being able to put fear on your units is something that I am coming to appreciate more. Now, a lot of the time you won't get the benefit of fear in that you have to outnumber your opponent to make them take a fear test. But if you don't outnumber them, but they cause terror, great. You no longer have to take terror tests if someone charges you. I think this is a really strong way to get a pseudo immune to psychology ability, and 25 points feels about right for it. You can also put it on a bigger unit, such as a unit of Jade Warriors, and that unit might actually outnumber your opponent. So they have to take fear tests to charge you, they have to take fear tests in combat. Really good stuff there. I like this. 25 points feels fairly pointed for it. I might struggle to put it in just because there's the no fly banner, there's the Jade banner, there's a war banner. There's a lot of stuff that I think I might want to put into my list just in general for Cathay. But Shroud of Shyama has a really good niche to fill. Finally, we've got the banner of Zen 1 for 15 points. Enemy units that wish to declare a stand and shoot or fire and flee charge reaction against a unit carrying the banner of Zen 1 must first make a leadership test. If the test is passed, they may declare a stand and shoot or fire and flee charge reaction. If the test has failed, they must hold instead. Sure, this is fine. 15 points. This is a worst banner of Shalons. I think that's not bad to give them a worse version of it. This is quite nice. If you wanted to go for a more aggressive list where you're trying to get in combat with something like Jade Lancers. Jade Lancers are inherently a little bit squishy. This is nice, you know, it gives you a little bit of resilience against getting shot. Now, it is a leadership test, so people are going to pass leadership tests most of the time. You'll find that there's not really any low leadership units in the game that matter. They might, on paper, have low leadership, but they'll be in range of your general, or they will have Horde and Warband, so it says 5 on the page, but they're actually leadership 8, and they're in range of a BSB, so they get to re-roll their panic tests. So I'm not expecting this to go off a lot, but if you're wanting to give your unit a little bit of protection, this is not a bad way to do it. Moving on to the Enchanted Items. Now, this is the one that people have collectively lost their mind over, and I understand why. So, you get the Ring of Jet for 30 points. It's extremely common, so you can take multiple of them. 0 to 1 per model, which is fine, it wouldn't matter. You can only cast 1 bound spell per phase, so even if you took 2, it wouldn't make a difference. The wielder of the Ring of Jet can cast the Unquiet Spirit spell from the Lore of Necromancy as a bound spell with a power level 2. Now, this is what this is basically Ruby Ring of Ruin, but with a different spell, and it's extremely common. And Ruby Ring of Ruin has been nerfed to be 5 points more, and power level 1 instead of power level 2. Why has this happened? If I go back to what I was saying about things taking at least 6 months lead time, obviously the FAQ was being worked on for a while, but in February and March, I had not heard whispers of the magic system changing. So I think that might have been a later addition, or maybe it hadn't been finalized. Whatever you want to say. So I think the reason that this is the way that it is because the FAQ was brought into being after this was sent to print, and it's as simple as that. Whether or not you think that is okay, that's another thing. There's the whole argument about whether we should move away from print media and move to full online PDF so that you can have things adjusted. I don't love that. I like the physical media existing. I think it's just nice to have, but there are downsides to it. Anyway, I am wondering if we're going to see a day 1 FAQ for Cathay, and that is my hope. I'm hoping that we see a couple of things addressed, such as this Ring of Jet maybe going down to power level 1. I don't even think you necessarily need to make it 35 points. I think it's fine at 30. Leave it 30 points, make it power level 1, adjust some other things for Cathay, which would be, balloons and maybe the cannons as well. And yeah, that would be good in my book. So I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. We're going to wait and see what happens, because remember, Games Workshop has not released these rules. It is not reasonable to give them grief for not having fixed this problem yet, because they have not released their rules. I'm going to say that again. We can't lose our minds until we've given them chance to fix things. We're going to give them chance to fix things, and it'll probably be okay. So, Ring of Jet, pretty good at the moment. Even if they nerf it down to power level 1, still pretty good. Being able to take lots of these is strong, and honestly it might be too good even at power level 1, or too good in terms of just being very efficient, in that you can put it on the Jade Lancer champions, and you can take 2 of those in core. So you could very easily spam this item, which I think is a little bit of an unfun way to play against, but also people are going to bring magic resist now. Magic is worse than it was. So I don't think it's a major issue, but yeah, this is one to keep your eye on. This is something you could probably build around. Golden Lion, 25 points. You can reroll failed Fear, Panic, Rally, or Terror tests. This is okay. I don't hate it. I don't love having to take Terror tests still. I think if I'm interested in taking this as a level of psychology protection, I'd rather take a BSB that has, the Shroud of Shyama. So they cause fear, makes them immune to terror, because fear-causing units fear terror causes. They don't take terror tests. So yeah, this exists. It's fine. It's not bad, but I'm not. It doesn't feel like it fills a niche for me in a way that I'm super excited for. If it was extremely common, I could maybe see you putting it on all of your Jade Warrior unit champions if you wanted to go down that route. But yeah, I'm not sold. Fires of Nangao, 20 points, 0 to 1 per model, single use. The Fires of Nangao is a breath weapon with the following profile. It's a breath weapon, so no range. Strength 4, AP -2, breath weapon, flaming attacks, magical attacks. This is another one that people have got a little bit up in arms over, I think, because theoretically it adds another way to help destroy bricks with balloons, which is strong. And that is true. And it does add additional output to balloons. However, I will say, I've been using breath weapons a lot in this edition. I've been playing dragons, and where I find breath weapons to be vaguely useful is when you can't charge with your dragon, but you're, playing against elves who are like T3 with no armor save or something like that. Breath weapons are aggressively okay. I'm not even sure they're aggressively okay. They're whatever. If I see my opponent has brought a breath weapon for 20 points, that doesn't scare me. I'm not saying it's bad, but also I think this is not as good as people are initially making it out to be. Does it make it into the balloon list? Quite possibly, just because it's an extra template. Is it going to do as much as people are worried about? Probably not. So 20 points, this feels about fair. And again, this is extremely common, which is, sure, a lot of stuff being extremely common in this book. I'm not 100% sure why we're getting all of that. Moving on to the Arcane items, and these are the last items we have, and there are some interesting ones here. Clockwork Compass, 50 points, single use. Instead of making a Wizardly Dispel, so you still have to be within 24 inches, or if you're a lower level caster, within 18. If you do so, the spell is automatically dispelled with no roll required. In addition, all remains in play spells are currently dispelled, including spells cast by friendly wizards. This is the Lizardman item, the Ixatai Cube, or whatever it's called. It's the same points cost, 50 points. It dispels all remains in play spells. This is probably not the meta to need it. Remains in play spells, there's not a lot of good ones. Previously, remains in play would mostly refer to vortex spells. They're now easier to get rid of. Magic is harder to cast. I think this is fine. I can't see it fitting into my lists, but it's nice to have these sorts of options if the meta changes and suddenly we face off against a lot of remains in play spells. If your biggest problem is your opponent's bringing 3 columns of crystal and that just becomes a problem that you've got to deal with, having this sort of item in your back pocket is nice to be able to buy. Seal of Xingpo, 25 points, 0 to 1 per model. You may discard 2 of your randomly generated spells rather than 1, and instead select 2 signature spells from either the Law of Yang or Yin, depending which one you've picked. Now, this is interesting. This doesn't let you take the signature spell from your signature law and also one from the Law of Yang. I think if it did that, that would be very good. If I could take an illusion caster and get, for example, Glittering Robes and also pick up the Assailment spell, something like that. That feels solid. But you can only get 2 from the Law of Yan or Ying. I think this is fine. It's 25 points, 0 to 1 per model, extremely common. You can take it multiple times if you want to. If you've got a specific build in mind, I can see this being useful. I don't know what specific build I would put together with this. Maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, this feels okay. It opens up options potentially, but there's not any options that I can think of immediately off the top of my head that I'm super excited to go for. If you could mix and match between the 2 laws, I think that would be much more exciting. Or mix and match between the law you pick and the the signature spell of the law that you're rolling from. That would be good as well. But here I'm thinking, yeah, sure, that is fine. Finally, we've got the Scrolls of Weijin, 10 points, not extremely common. You know 1 more spell than is normal for the level of wizardry, and they can only cast a number of spells equal to their level of wizardry per turn. I don't know why this is 10 points. This is just 5 points cheaper than everyone else gets this item. It's not extremely common, but that's not an argument in its favour because things like the Silvery Wand are not extremely common, the high elf version. Also, this item already exists. You've got the there's something bow, I believe, in the main book. In fact, I've got it open. Let's just scroll down. So if you wanted to have more spells, you could already take for 15 points a learned Feng Shi Bo. For 15 points, you get +1 spell known than, is normal for their level of wizardry. So you could have a level 4 wizard that knows 6 spells. And that's 25 points. And one's extremely common and one isn't, so you can combine them. I don't really understand why they printed this. This just feels like power creep in a way that is kind of very difficult to defend. I don't see a reason to print this. Yeah. Not a lot to say. It's a weird choice to put this in. This doesn't make much sense to me, so yeah. Well, that takes us to the end of the magic items. How do you feel about these rules for the Jade Fleet? Obviously, outside of the Spectre of Balloons, I think this is fun. I think there's some fun, flavorful stuff in here. Some of the magic items are a bit weird. Some of them are fun. There's not a lot in there that makes me super jazzed. There's stuff that's maybe too good or maybe not good enough. I don't feel like there's much that sort of hits the level. The banners are good. I like these special rules in that they add flavor without adding too much power. I think that's quite nice. And I'm interested in playing around with Unity and Harmony. Maybe there's some sort of melee build we can go for with Cathay, which is something that I think they've struggled with up until this point. There's not a huge reason to go heavy on the melee for Cathay at the moment. So yeah, interesting stuff to play around, and looking forward to hopefully a day one patch, but if not, some sort of FAQ coming in the not too distant future from Games Workshop. Fingers crossed. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Grey Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Grey Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.